And we're back for the second time today. Let me check my Wi-Fi. Good thing I did. It was on the bad one. All right, we are ready. TikTok really does make me angry sometimes. In my last stream, I got like 3 restrictions for literally doing nothing. It says for repetitive behavior. It's just like, what? Anyway, yeah. Oh, Albi too. I love you. Anuska, I love you. Thank you for joining, everyone. I love all of my viewers. In fact, you could say that I love every single life form in the universe and every single potential life form as well. So you are all included in that. You know, my benevolence extends to everyone. So just assume that I love you by default. Unless you're going to troll. Actually, you know what? I love the trolls as well. All right, I am using headphones for the first time on my stream, so let me know if the audio quality is better, everyone. Hello, Ghost, how are you doing?
Hi. I think the audio is good. So I was thinking about what if, like, scientifically we reduce suffering to 0? What do you think about that?
That's what extinctionism is.
No, and I'm not talking about extinction. Like, I'm talking about physical pain and the wild animal. If we did something like to create, I don't know, artificial meat or something for the tiger to eat rather than eating a deer. And
no, you see, that doesn't work. It doesn't provide certainty of safety. So, you know, a lot of people say we should raise conditions, but you can never really raise conditions to an acceptable, you know, okay level, which is certainty of safety. Anything less than that, and it's basically the same as what we have now, where you still have infinite danger, infinite risk of suffering.
Yeah, I mean, but the suffering is reduced that, like, I don't know, maybe
we should
20%.
reduce suffering, yeah, but
yeah,
we
are
should
reducing suffering, I guess.
But we should never prioritize reducing suffering over ending suffering. In the same way that you know, if someone said we should reduce slavery instead of ending it, you'd be like, what?
But one maybe like scientifically we could like end it. I don't know, not by ending all life.
Yeah. So the thing is,
ending the suffering.
I had this conversation on the last stream like a couple hours ago, and even if you want to end all suffering without extinction, you would still need to do extinction, right? The thing is, unless you sterilize the entire universe, then there's still going to be suffering, right? You can't solve suffering without essentially making it so that there is no life existing in uncertainty, right? With infinite danger. And life is just going to keep existing, keep coming back, you know, evolving and popping out of nowhere, unless you sterilize the universe. So look, one way, the best way to think about it, and I was just thinking about this before I went on the stream just now, extinctionism, it covers both, right? It covers the pleasure and the safety from suffering, but we have to prioritize the safety from suffering. And if we get some pleasure, then that's a byproduct, like collateral damage. We can't focus on the pleasure. We have to focus on doing the right thing and providing safety from suffering. And look, we don't need life to exist now anyway, right? So look, we can do total extinction, and then, as you know, if we pass the job on to AI and robots, and you know, humanity is gone, then they can carry on the science to explore, you know, creating a heaven, right? The engineering heaven, right? So we don't need to ignore all of the suffering in the meantime. We can help end the suffering, and then the robots can do that, and they can create new life and put it into that heaven if they need to. But there's no point just ignoring all the suffering and going after the pleasure. That's, you know, the ultimate evil.
Yeah, I was thinking about like us creating a heaven for us and animals, but still the suffering, like physical suffering, it will be like 0, but still the emotional suffering is still a problem. So do you think the emotional suffering is a problem? Because for me, I don't think it's really a problem.
Well, suffering is the problem, right? And look,
Yeah,
even if we all go into a simulation tomorrow, right? It could still go wrong, and we could still get tortured horrifically. So, again,
yeah,
without omniscience level certainty of safety, you have infinite danger, infinite risk. So we can either provide the certainty of safety of non-existence, or we can go after literally the most difficult thing imaginable. When we already have a solution, right? If we run the world tomorrow, we could start doing extinction immediately. But to go after omniscience instead, when we already have a way to help the sufferers, it doesn't seem like the right thing to me. That it doesn't seem like a practical option or way forward.
yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for coming up. I appreciate that. It's a good conversation. And if you have more questions about that, because there is a lot to talk about there, I would say that I'm happy to go into more detail on that. No way, TikTok's given me another restriction. What is the problem? Wow, it's just given me 2 restrictions in a row, literally for repetitive behavior. Like what? Yeah, that's really annoying. Restricted for 10 minutes due to prolonged actions like not being on the screen. How is this fair? How is that fair? Okay, but we're not talking about mass murder or anything like that. And even if we were, that wouldn't be against the rules. I don't think I really spoke about anything there just now that was that risky, to be honest. Okay, look, a few people are saying I want to donate, I want to send gifts. You can do that by clicking on my profile and send money to my PayPal if you want. You can also become a subscriber to my channel on TikTok. That pays me money. Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Do you remember my voice?
Yeah. It's the same voice that every German has.
I'm actually not German.
Fair enough.
So,
Maybe. Yeah. Go ahead.
do you enjoy the little photos I made for you?
I can't really. I think you sent some like crazy pictures, right?
And the other guy sent one too, like your most dedicated fan.
Yeah. No, I enjoy it. Keep it going. Why not? Whatever makes you happy.
Okay. That's it. Thank you. Goodbye. My
Okay.
pleasure.
Guten Tag and bitte sehen. Danke. Cherry coming up next. Our next guest, Cherry. Hello. How you doing?
Hello. Hey, man, how's it going?
Good.
My thing is like, well, who decides this? Because if someone's
Anyone
suffering,
can
and
decide.
yeah, but it would have to be the person suffering to decide.
No.
So
So, like, have you heard of this thing called euthanasia?
yeah,
Yeah. So that's usually done without the recipient deciding to agree to it.
okay, but then someone's deciding, right?
Exactly. So yes, someone should decide, and yeah, that's a good thing, right? Humans have the intelligence to make decisions.
Yeah, but yeah, you got to make them for other people, though. It's
That's how
not
the world
really.
works. That's how the world works, isn't it? When you have a
Well,
child,
yeah,
you're making a decision for them, and then
but
lots of
why?
decisions for
What
them.
I'm saying, why is there the big focus on suffering and not the counterbalance of pleasure? Because pleasure cancels out the suffering. So
How?
you
So
could
so
equally.
so when a child abuser is murdering a child but enjoying it, does that cancel out the suffering that they're causing?
No, I mean,
But that
globally,
is what you're
or
suggesting, though, right?
no,
That
globally,
but what if the abuser really enjoys it, right? Surely that could theoretically counterbalance, right?
well, that means we have to stop pedos.
Right, but the only way to do that is with extinction.
Yeah, to completely stop it, but then
Yeah.
you'd be stopping all the pleasure of the world as well. That
So
doesn't
yeah,
hurt anyone
but you're
else.
what the dynamic you're describing is like a meat grinder where you're sat on top of it, and children and animals are being thrown in and tortured, and then you're enjoying all the meat coming out on the top. So that's not really a good system.
No, no, you're confused
Really.
because you're focusing. Yeah, man, you really are. You're
So
focusing on
you
the
don't you
suffering.
well
What about
yeah,
the pleasure
well that's
of
like a
things that
slave
don't
that's
hurt
like a
anyone?
slave owner mentality, right? It's like saying, oh, what about all the pleasure that we're getting from the work and the labor from the slaves? Why are
No,
you
no,
focusing
but
on their suffering?
if you just look at the whole world as a total, there's pleasure and there's suffering.
So how
Why?
much? So you think there's
What?
a perfect balance?
No, but what I'm saying is you
Do
could
you think there's a
equally.
balance?
I can't speak unless you let me, right? So what I'm saying is there's a lot of suffering and there's a lot of pleasure,
Right.
right? And so
Which
if
is
you
which
were
is
to
also
say,
true in a child abuse
okay,
situation.
I need to talk.
Well, look, if
Uh,
you're struggling to have a flow here, then it's not going to work. Okay, there needs to be a bit of a back and forth, and yeah, if you're being intimidated by that, then it's not going to work. You're not here just to talk by yourself alone. Nima, hello, how you doing?
What's up? Doing good. Just general question. You do these lives a lot. This is not meant as like an insulting question. I'm just wondering, like, how have you financially set yourself up to spend as much time as you do? Kind of working as an apologetic for the movement.
That's a great question, but I'll only answer it if you can prove it's relevant.
Okay. The end objective is to end all suffering. Financial stability goes a long way towards helping anybody in their movement to end suffering. So how did you go about making that happen for yourself?
I didn't, basically. I'm relying on family support.
Okay. Gotcha.
And yeah, the situation will be different for everyone as well. And in an ideal world, I'd be able to make a living out of doing this, but so far, that's not. Yeah, I am making money out of it. I've made, I don't know, a few €100, maybe 300-400 euros so far in like a year. So maybe if I kept going, it'll pick up a bit. But yeah, I don't actually have a solid plan for my finances going forward at the minute.
Gotcha. Okay. So I guess my next question is, as it relates to the long-term plans of the movement, I think I heard you discussing with someone one time that there was plans for your movement eventually to have like a commune in India. I didn't find
Yeah,
anything on your website
yeah.
about that.
Yeah, we were actually talking about it today in the movement group. Yeah, I mean, the movement started in India, and we have lots of activists in India, and it's not like a solid plan. It's not in motion yet by any means. But India would be a very good place to do it. It'd be very cheap to buy some land, to have a compound. Yeah, it would be nice if we could have activists living there for free. They can do activism. They can have a community, and ideally they could also be doing something to earn money. So we'd try and have a bit of a business going as well to make it sustainable. Unless we're just completely funded by donations at that point, but there's not a lot of money coming into the movement just yet. So yeah, a compound in India would be great, but this is just a random number off the top of my head, but we'd probably need like 20-30 grand to get the ball rolling, and that's not looking likely anytime soon.
Okay.
But
Final
if
question.
it does happen, it'd be great. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Final question, not necessarily related to the topic. Who are you rooting for in the World Cup?
I don't follow football at all, so like not even a little bit.
Gotcha. So, do you have any interest outside of the movement?
Yeah. I TV, movies, music. I read, practice languages. Yeah, I'm watching a few shows at the minute. I've got friends. We go out and stuff. I got family. Yeah.
So, I think you've mentioned in the past that you had degrees or that you were fluent in a couple languages. What made you go into languages?
It's what I was best at school, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So yeah, I went and did Hispanic studies, which includes Spanish language, Portuguese language, literature, and history. And yeah, I got a first class degree in it. That was pretty good, and I still practice those languages today.
Interesting. And so I'm curious, just as a perspective of like, naturally having to study other languages, you have to study other culture. Human history is wrought surely with suffering, but I think also with impressive accomplishments and progress that we've made. How do you kind of balance that appreciation for what humanity has accomplished with suffering in your own mind?
But I don't really appreciate it. I don't hold it in high regard or anything really. I don't have emotional feelings about it in that sense. I would say it's just the way it is, right? Humanity progressed, but that's just how evolution works. You start with a single-celled organism, and you eventually get intelligent life.
Gotcha. So you mentioned, of course, that humanity is, first of all, that we need to have more people around in order for the extinctionist movement to grow, and that technology has to advance in order for extinctionalism to be technically viable.
No,
how do you
even today we could begin it. We could start, and yes, we'd have to advance the technology as we went on, but we could get started today.
But for the end goal, which I think as you described it would be like AI or some type of autonomous system, right, going throughout the universe and eliminating all life, there would have to be some advancement. How do you, if you are an apologist for having people adhere to your worldview and your ideals and your practices, how do you see people having no appreciation or no enthusiasm for the advancement of humanity and creativity and study and still getting to that point? That seems like it's kind of not really feasible.
That's a good point. I would say that all of those things that you mentioned are irrationalities, right? That they are placeholders for actual rational positions. But yes, if humans on the 1.0 have to rely on that, then yes, we should try and foster some pride and whatever else they need for themselves.
Is empathy rational?
Yes.
In what way?
It's a part of rationality, and it requires rationality, I would say, for proper empathy. I guess as you begin trying to understand the world and what you should be doing for it, part of that calculation necessarily requires full empathy, basically, and to understand things properly.
So you said it is and that it does, but you haven't really explained how or why. Can you go into that?
Can you be more specific?
Well, you said that empathy is necessary for rationality.
Yeah.
Why?
Because essentially empathy is basically a rational understanding of the world. It's understanding and being aware of everything. So it's not about choosing to care. It's literally being aware. So the more aware you are, the more empathy you will have.
I don't know that's necessarily borne out in our observance of the behavior of every living being on this planet. I think that's kind of counter to my observations.
But like I say, the more awareness you have, the more empathy you will get. But it has to be past a certain point, I would say. It's difficult to describe because humanity 1.0 is very different to humanity 2.0. So things do work differently in terms of biology and logic and everything else for extinctionists.
Sure, and so I get that. I guess that kind of goes into another point. So,
which I'm willing to go into detail with if you need, by the way, because a lot of people criticize me massively for saying that. They hate me for saying that, but I can absolutely defend it.
So I think that, and maybe that's where we're going. We've spoken before. I think briefly I asked if you were a eugenicist, and you didn't want to strictly identify yourself with that term, but you did say that you think the human species needs to advance on a genetic front. So my question is, what does your movement do to that end?
Yeah, great question. So we are donating sperm in order to get better genetics out there into the gene pool. That's one big thing that we can do. It may even be the best thing that we can do. It might actually be better than video activism at this point. It's looking like it may well be one of the best things you can do. In fact, we are actually considering changing our sort of strategy to literally make it more genetic, basically. Because right now we're only encouraging people really to make videos and to grow the movement that way. But yeah, it is looking like we are going to have to shift much more towards donating sperm and reproducing as a much more effective way to grow the movement. Now, on top of that, that's the first thing that we're doing. Then the second thing we're doing is studying genetics further, studying psychology and neuroscience further. So there's actually a lot of massive holes and gaps in mainstream science and neuroscience and stuff like that we are filling in for them. So we're advancing, genetic science on that front essentially, and that may well help to improve genetics for humanity going forward.
Interesting. So your group has published papers or is involved in active research?
No, we're not involved in any like official institutes or papers or anything like that. We probably wouldn't get allowed to.
Okay. Well, then where do you share your findings in your research? How do you propagate that, right? If you're not involved in a typical avenues for scientific
we do that.
and
We do that through our content. One of the best ways to see that is through our podcast. So Steve has a science degree as well, and we go into a lot of the science on the podcasts, and you can find that on all major platforms: YouTube, Apple, Spotify, everything, just by searching Pro Extinction Podcast.
Okay. My next question. So, you're a movement that is okay with, active action to, affect the human genome. You're an organization that has goals of starting compounds. You're an organization that is okay with at some point, murder. My question is how, for most people, when they hear that, red flags go off in their head, right? We look back on our history and we immediately think of atrocities. How do you go about, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess easing the minds.
We don't.
Maybe be.
We don't, basically. So, yeah, people are always going to criticize it, like Cora, and say it's a cult. But, ultimately, why should we care about that? And, we do debunk it, right? We debunk it all the time because we get accused of being a cult every day. And it's very easy to debunk it, but really, it's a lack of a counter argument, a lack of real criticism. There's nothing to it, right? It's just saying I don't like you, so I'm going to call you a cult at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know enough about your organization and especially its members and how you interact with each other to say you're a cult or anything. I wouldn't.
There's really nothing cultish about it. I can assure you. It's a meritocracy. It's run rationally, peacefully. But even anyone that we've kicked out of the movement or banned from the Discord, they can still come back if they want, right? If they were kicked out by accident or whatever, they can contact us again and say, no, I want to appeal that, let's talk it through. And we'll say, okay, let's talk it through. There's really nothing cultish about it. It's just, it's what you would want from an organization.
Well, I guess, so, and you kind of said, why should we care, right? If we raise those red flags with people and all of that. But if the goal of of your movement right now is simply to grow, shouldn't that be an intense concern? How do you circumvent that?
Because again, the concerns of people that disagree with extinction just aren't really that relevant, basically, or important. It's not something that we need to address.
I mean, I don't really see how that could work if you want to grow your movement if you're not going to interact or try to persuade anybody who disagrees with you.
Oh, well, we do. I mean, that's what I do on this show all the time.
Sure, yeah. But at the same end, I think, there's a lot of, I will say, the majority of guests that I've seen come on your show are not people who agree with you. Right?
Yeah, and actually, I was just thinking about this as well. In the same way that focusing less on making videos and debates and focusing more on genetics, in the same vein that it's a waste of time, is what I'm trying to tell you. Yeah, that's why I've also been encouraging activists to focus on going viral with a weaker message, a softer message, one that's, instead of a 2-3 minute video going into intense detail and explanations, a 40-second silly viral video can do much more for the movement, because all we need is enough explanation in there for someone to see it and say, yeah, okay, I agree with that, I'm going to join. So it's better to have a video with 100,000 views and half of the message than, the full message and only 1,000 views.
Do you think you'll ever reach the member size that you need by simply finding people that agree with you? Do you not think you have to persuade people?
Well, like I say, we need to do it genetically as well. That's potentially going to be the biggest way that we can do it. But we are doing it by growing the movement, by communicating. But in terms of convincing those that don't agree with it, our science and experience has shown that that's not actually possible. So, if it were possible, then basically, this is funny, right? This is interesting. If it were possible, then we would be dealing with a pluribus situation where it would be possible to essentially collapse humanity into one ideology. So instead of that, the reality is that people cannot change, basically, and you are wasting your time trying to convince them. So, most religious people, if you try and explain to them that religion is irrational, they won't listen, they won't understand, you won't change their minds, they won't care, they'll say some silly counter arguments that don't make any sense. And that is the same with non-extinctionists, basically. Now, yes, obviously there is a point at which a non-extinctionist can be converted into an extinctionist. Like, nobody is born extinctionist. But if you have to really struggle and fight to convince them, then it's pointless. So basically, really, it's just people that understood it and agreed quite easily, quite quickly. Those are the only ones that are really going to join it in the first place. Those who struggle to understand it will never truly understand it.
Okay. So my question is, I guess, too, as I've listened to these lives and I've heard the people who have come on and agreed with you, and, I'm not saying it's irrational in any way, but most of them don't seem to be very happy with their life. Most of them seem to be in pretty rough situations, right? You're an organization that aims to end towards suffering, so obviously you appeal more to people who are in active suffering. But people who are in active suffering tend to not be super productive. I mean, I can say that as myself. I've had health complications in my life that have made me a pretty unproductive person for periods of my life.
Yeah, that's part of the problem, is that, all of the people with illnesses and the weaker people who need the help, they die off. So we don't even hear from them. So we only hear from the privileged ones who have a voice. So yeah, we have to speak out for the voiceless.
Okay. So going back to the whole genetically producing more people who align with your ideology, who you believe have the genetic capacity to agree with you and accept your ideology. My question is, why is it the responsibility of your children and the humanity of a whole? And I don't mean, and I will preface this, but I think the most obvious answer would be because we're the ones who can. Why is it simply the responsibility of those who can to do, in your worldview?
Well, yeah, I mean, having, with power comes responsibility, right? So as soon as you're able to do something, you have to make a decision. Are you going to help or not help, right? And in terms of why should we have children and force them to help? Because it is the lesser of two evils, basically.
How do you define evil? I mean, in a purely naturalistic worldview. I mean, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in a god or a higher power or anything like that.
Same here.
So
lesser of
how
two
do you
evils
define-
is a phrase. It means the lesser of two bad things.
Sure. Yeah, but isn't what's bad a personal subjective idea?
No. If everything was subjective, then child abuse would be fine, right? So that's not a realistic way to run the world, to operate anything.
Does it matter if it's realistic, if it's reality?
Yeah, it does matter, right? Because it causes suffering.
Okay. Um, so I guess my next question is, in the aims to end all suffering, nature was able to produce life in and of itself with no input from us, and what is an extremely hostile environment for biological life to develop, right? We look at the universe, we've invested a lot of time and money as a species attempting to identify life in other parts of the universe, and we've been very unsuccessful. It seems like most of the universe is extremely uninhabitable to the form of life that we observe here. What makes you think that we have the capability, right, even with advanced technology, to truly end all suffering?
Well, it's nobody saying that we do or will. It's that we should try to end all suffering. So
Okay.
extinctionism is just about doing as much as we can and exploring those limits, right? It's our moral obligation to do so. And yeah, it might stop at Earth, it might stop at the galaxy, it might stop at 10 galaxies, but we should, it'll only stop when we say, oh, turns out there's nothing more we can do, right? This is the limit. So we should reach that limit, and hopefully that will, be the entire universe.
Okay. But I've kind of heard you argue, right, that the whole reason that, extinctionalism is better than just trying to create a utopia or trying to minimize suffering to any degree while still maintaining life is because extinctionism is the only thing that can truly end all suffering. But I think what you just conceded there is the fact that, you know, as much as the human brain has the capability to reason, to develop, and as much as the laws of physics as we understand them and observe and so far, that truly being able to stop life from developing across the universe is not a truly feasible goal.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, from a purely physics perspective, tell me how we can accurately scan the core and the full scope of every single planet in the universe to be able to determine if there's even life there to try to extinguish in the first place.
Well, there's sort of two possibilities. There's you've got FTL, faster than light travel, and then you have sublight travel. Now, our movement is still open-minded that it may be possible to create some sort of FTL in the future.
Yeah.
Bearing
Well, I mean,
in
getting to
mind,
the planets, that's just the first step. But I mean, we can't even accurately probe or scan, planets within our own solar system right now to truly determine if there's any life on that. How do you think it's possible that we could even? I'm asking you, how do you think that there's even the physics that make it possible for us to create even the sensors that are necessary?
very easy. Well, I would say that we don't necessarily need sensors, but well, as it stands, we can already look at a planet and say, is it likely to sustain life or to be potentially habitable? And we can already say, yeah, this one's next to the star, it's way too hot, or that one's too far away, it's probably too cold. So, we can absolutely already do that to a large extent. But I would say that even on the lower end of extinction technology, we can create artificial moons, which will block out the sun and make it as if, it's just there is no sun, there is no heat source. It will just freeze, basically. So, we already have the technology to do that. It already exists. And I think that's, even if we did that to every planet possible, right? That would already be a good step towards extinction. And yeah, if that was literally the limit of what we could do, then we would try and do it. But we do believe that we could do it much better than that.
Okay. So even if you can't end all life, ending most life to you is a reasonable goal in the aims of ending suffering.
We should end as much suffering as we can. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not trying to, in this way, trying to attack you personally at all, but I've asked in previous questionnaires that we've had, like, what steps are you taking in the meantime to minimize suffering in the world right now? And kind of your answer has been it's irrelevant, right? Extinctionalism is the end goal. There's no point in spending time on anything else at all. I think as the point that you've conceded, right, the fact that we can't be certain that we'll be able to eliminate all life, because even if we put moons, right, in the middle of every planetoid and star in the universe, right, well, there's still energy that can be derived from the core of planets, right, that could be millions of meters underneath everything that we could never feasibly touch with any level of technology that we
well,
now
you don't
have,
know that. You don't know
1,000
that. I disagree that it's you can rule it out like that.
I don't know that's necessarily unreasonable. I mean, there's a
I
lot
think
of
it is.
evidence.
I think you are trying to predict the future, and that I don't think you can do that.
Isn't that what you're doing as well right now? I mean,
No.
you're predicting a lot of, well, you're hoping at least, you're hoping for a lot of things in the future, right? A lot of advances in technology,
it's the
a lot of
opposite.
growth in
It's
the
the
movement.
opposite. No, it's the opposite. Instead of hoping, we should take action and try and do it.
Okay. That hope is based off the belief that it's possible, though, isn't it?
Which is
Or that
based off, which
those
is
actions-
empirically based.
Empirically based. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of empirical evidence coming about that life potentially started on our planet, right, around thermal vents in our oceans, right? And life on our planet only developed, as far as we know, right, carbon-based life. But there's plenty of more elements. Doesn't it seem a little bit? What's the word I'm looking for? I guess it just seems silly to say that we have any formal grasp on how life can develop on the universe as a whole to think that we can even influence it all.
Well, we already influence our environment massively.
Yeah, on our planet, right? On a planet that we developed on.
On our planet,
environment
on
that we
our
were involved
moon, in our orbit. We've sent machines to most of the planets in our solar system. We've got one or two that's already gone beyond the solar system.
Yeah, 2, Voyager 1 and 2. Yeah.
So look, humanity has only just begun its journey into science and technology. Look, we've had the internet for 30 years. Science and technology is advancing exponentially. Come on, 1,000 years from now, 1,000,000 years from now, it's going to be very easy to do extinction.
On our planet, I would absolutely agree. I think it's probably not too difficult to even do it in a short term. Like I can see before the time that I die that it's possible to eliminate all life on Earth.
Yeah.
But given the fact that we have no idea what the scope of life is beyond our own solar system, right? Would ending all life here even really make a dent in the suffering of the universe? We have no idea.
Yes, it would. Yeah. We do have an idea.
As a
we do
scalar,
have an idea.
as a scalar, though.
No, because you're making it irrelevant, right? You're reducing it to zero value. That's not logical.
How is it not logical to say that we don't know what the scope of life is outside of our own solar
because
system?
you're saying that there is zero value to eliminating suffering on Earth if there's suffering on a different planet, but that doesn't make sense.
Well, you've told me yourself that there's no point in trying to end suffering right now if we can't eliminate all suffering. That's what you've expressed to me in the past.
No. There's no point trying to reduce suffering.
Wouldn't that just be reducing suffering if there's Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, it would be ending suffering, right?
Well, I mean,
on Earth.
It would be ending suffering on Earth.
Yeah,
Sure.
which is a good thing. That's worth doing. You're trying to say that it's not worth doing if there's other suffering out there. But if we can only help one child instead of two, we should still help the one child.
Sure. Well, I guess what I'm kind of seeing a disconnect here, and perhaps you can kind of explain here.
Yeah.
So you said right now, right, that you're not focused on really putting any effort or focus into mitigating or ending suffering.
Well,
right
that's
now
what
on
our
Earth.
activism. That's what our activism is doing. Yeah. So we're doing that full speed.
Yeah, but outside of extinctionalism, your
But
movement.
this is the most efficient and effective way to deal with suffering.
And in the long term, I think there's an argument to be made there that I agree with. But in the short term, right, and this kind of gets to the whole back to the whole point of trying to have more children, right? And you said multiple times, people, sufferers are crying out now for help and assistance now. They need help as quickly as they can get it.
But there's billions of years of them, and an entire universe full, right? So we do have to go after the larger amount, the more urgent, the more sensical suffering to go after.
Okay. So you have to go after the most sensical. I guess my question is, what I don't understand is, you're an organization and an ideal that is based around ending suffering, and the end goal of that being extinctionalism. I guess I just don't understand, with that being your ideology and your values, why you guys don't take more action. I don't see why you can't do more.
Like what?
Okay. First of all, championing for greater food production for human beings. I think you've mentioned like
Because look, we could. There's a million different causes that we could advocate for, right? But
absolutely, yeah.
but that's
And I'm not saying you have to focus on all of them. I just don't understand an organization that's based on
no,
empathy.
it would be very inefficient, very ineffective to focus on other causes instead of the most important one.
So you're telling me as a person, and I think what I understand, you're not working right now. You're telling me as a person who doesn't work that you don't have time to like volunteer at a food bank or
Well, again,
try
it
to
would
assist.
be an inefficient use of time. It would be unfair to the
So
to
it's
the
inefficient.
sufferers.
You're telling me you don't have any time whatsoever out of the time you put into this movement?
Well, think about it, right? If you can help like trillions and trillions, or you can help one, obviously you should help the larger number.
You
It's
can't do
like
both. That's beyond your capabilities.
you could, but it would be hypocritical.
Why would it be hypocritical to end all suffering in all scopes that you can, both large scale and small scale?
Because it would just be an incredibly inefficient use of time, right? It would be like
Efficiencies
doing
be damned. Suffering is happening now. Why aren't you doing everything you can?
because we shouldn't be short-sighted like that, right? You're not thinking about future suffering.
I'm not saying you have to disregard
Well, you are.
users.
You are saying
No.
that we should. You are saying that we should reduce it, right? So it is disregarding it.
No, I wasn't saying that you couldn't. My question was,
Well, no, you're saying if we spend half the time doing something else, then yes, we have to disregard what we're taking away half that time from.
well, I'm not asking for half your time. I'm simply saying, do you have no free time in and of yourself outside of what you dedicate to this movement to try to mitigate suffering as it exists now?
Well,
Or get out of
again, it's not about that. It's that would be a very inefficient use of right. If you can help loads of people, or you could just help one, it would be very irrational to help a tiny minority instead of a massive majority.
Okay, so let's concede that point. My question is, do you have no time inside of your life right now outside of this movement to try to help individuals?
Well, I mean, I could take out time from extinction activism to help individuals.
Well, no,
but
no, no.
again,
I'm not asking you to take time out of your activism. I'm saying, do you have no personal time at all?
Well, I don't think personal questions are rational to ask.
But you're asking us to dedicate to this basically our actions, our ideals to this on a personal level. When I look at every other movement across history, personal arguments are extremely effective, right, in growing a movement.
Right.
Why are
but
you so shy from making those arguments?
Because you're referring to humanity 1.0. You're referring to abusing their irrationality, manipulating their irrationality. Our movement strictly relies on rationality, not tricking people, but just telling them the truth.
Okay. That seems like an excuse to me, to be totally honest.
Explain.
Okay, so I guess I can, since I'm asking this on a personal level, right, I can give personal background, which is that I grew up in an extremely religious background. My father was a minister. I grew up in an extremely
Nima,
religious...
we're going to end the stream there for you, because getting personal is a bad thing, right? It's not a good thing. Focusing on personal, well, whether it's criticisms or arguments or exploration, that is a bad thing, right? It's a really bad thing. Taking away from the understanding that everyone can share about this and making it about me or you, that's really not a good thing, not a rational thing. Lopcraft, hello, how are you doing?
Hey, thanks for pulling me up. Yeah, I'm fine. How about you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
So, I don't know. For example, I think I'm somewhat of an anti-natalist, but I'm not very in a militant way, or not like in a very demanding way. It's more or less just what I decided for myself. But I'm not an activist or trying to push an agenda on anybody, and therefore I think, well, of course, this movement pro extinction is way more consequential, and is I don't know, is taking it to the next level, more or less.
Yeah.
However, with all of these anti-utilitarian or negative utilitarian philosophies, there's certain problems. For example, let's say this is not what I'm proposing. I'm just building up a hypothetical. Let's look at like the Near East conflict, for example. There's people like in the middle of the world being in war since about, I don't know, 2,000 years, maybe even longer. And they cannot seem to find an agreement there. And it's clearly also about artifacts and about the place and the ground. So how about just, I don't know, making this entire space uninhabitable? This might cause some short suffering of people. However, no more suffering like in the last 2,000 years. This is not what I'm proposing. This is a hypothetical, but it would probably end this question, you know. And
But yeah, I mean, that's just one example though, right? You know, people like to focus on Gaza, but it's just one example, right? And it's just going to keep happening. And, you know, it's a symptom, not the problem. So that is going to just keep happening in Gaza, in Asia, wherever else. It's just going to keep happening until we end it.
Yeah, but if you're saying you already want to remove suffering now, you need to draw a boundary. What kind of sacrifice are you willing to make to already make a contribution right now? For example, a lot of the people of the movement are vegans, and they're making some kind of a trade-off already to reduce suffering right now.
No. The vegans in our movement recognize that veganism causes more suffering. So yeah, we don't actually support vegan activism, and we only allow our we allow vegans and non-vegans to be extinction activists. But the vegan activists who do extinction activism, they're not allowed to do vegan activism in our movement because veganism does cause more suffering, and because activism for other ideologies that don't actually end suffering, for pro-life, because veganism is a pro-life ideology. So activism for other ideologies is not allowed if you represent our movement as well. But yeah, you know, to get back to the main point, veganism does cause more suffering than eating meat at the minute.
Yeah. Okay. I can see how do you respond? Like in general, you don't want to interfere with. At least this is more vegan talking point. I don't know if this is a pro-extinction talking point. You don't want to harm any other beings, and you don't want to be overreaching or I don't know, inflicting. I don't know how to phrase this. For some other being to do something that is not in their own interest, and for some people, for example, pro-lifers, pro-natalists, whatever, they want to stay alive no matter what, and I mean, you cannot like re-educate them forcefully, and you cannot, and they will probably, even though, even considering the movement may become intergalactical at one point, there might still be like intellectual resistance of people who just say, nah, let me live.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So we still have to do it. We still have to provide safety to them.
I mean, even though it's against their will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because look, it's going to be against the will of animals, right? They have the same problem that you just described, and it's no different for humans.
Yeah. I mean, There's actually people who at least state, I don't know if it's mental conflict or some, I don't know, worthy of healthcare, but who get a lot of pleasure out of their suffering. And if they insist on keeping it going for themselves, I think it's a bit overreaching to say, well, we actually know better what is right for you, no?
Well, it's firstly two things. So, firstly, there is suffering that they won't enjoy, right? So they might enjoy a little bit, but there's much worse stuff that they should be safe from and that they would not enjoy. And secondly,
there's people who want to be eaten alive and stuff. I mean, there's all kind of, I don't know.
yeah, but that's what they want, right? Whereas there are things that are even worse than that could still happen to them. So, secondly, they could hurt others, right? So they pose a danger to themselves and to others. So no, we can't allow it.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. Also, I also think like when people want to be eaten alive, maybe society should be protecting them from themselves. Because there's probably some kind of.
I mean, by your logic, we should eat them alive.
We should.
Yeah, you're saying that we should respect their decision, right?
Yeah, I'm a bit torn by that. I think we should to a certain extent also as modern societies protect people from harming themselves to a greater extent, especially when it causes harm to others. And this is a point I need to give you.
Yeah.
Okay. One last thing. I think you're very very much techno optimists. Let's say you believe that well, technology will bring us the solution, and you're very much basing.
We don't need new technology. We could start doing extinction today.
How?
Very easily, right? Just removing animals, ban pet ownership, start doing animal euthanasia, start removing our dependence on farmed animals, start removing the farmed animals.
But this would hurt ecosystems and
so
this would easily conflict with the greater goal of removing all life from the universe.
Yeah.
I mean, we're probably not gonna become an interplanetary species if we destroy all our ecosystems right now.
Right, but we can try and replace the dependence on animals so that we can survive without them, and then get rid of them at the same time. It's probably going to happen at the same time. So we'll be advancing, removing our dependence on them, and removing the animals bit by bit, basically.
Yeah. But it's extremely hard to predict, It's like, I mean, one of my friends, he studied like ecosystems and it's called modeling more or less.
I see what you mean. We'll probably use AI to help make it easier. Yeah, it will be complicated.
Yeah, I think everybody is screaming AI these days, and it's not really clear if.
Even if we don't use AI, we can still find a way to do it, right? We already do it, right? We already do deforestation. We're already, doing loads of stuff like that.
What if said technology that is necessary gets in the wrong hands? It's not clear that the technology will only be wielded or only be used by the movement itself, but there's always bad actors, and almost all
anything could happen.
Is dual use.
Anything could happen, right? Lots of stuff will happen, but that's just the way the world works. So you have to try. You take the blows and the punches, and you just keep your head up, keep your chin up, and you keep going.
Yeah. For me, I'm still very torn. I mean, I got a vasectomy, so I will not reproduce. However, I'm trying to raise the child of my girlfriend as well. So, but I wouldn't suggest anybody to reproduce or
But we
eat
do.
or hurt animals.
The more humans we have, the less suffering there is. So for every human that exists, it prevents millions of wild animals from suffering terribly. So that's a good thing. And for every human we have, the closer we get to being able to do extinction. Imagine if we had only 100 humans on the planet, we wouldn't be able to do anything. But the more humans that we have, the bigger the population, the faster we will progress scientifically and technologically. And so, the more humans that we have, they're not going to suffer that much anyway compared to the wild animals that we can help. So yeah, we need more humans.
Yeah, I think that, but then you're putting quantities over quality. You could also say, well, we want to have less humans, therefore society moves maybe slower. However, we can make wiser decisions by
because we
not having to argue about resources,
we
not
can't
having
risk
so much resource conflicts.
We can't risk human extinction. It's just not acceptable to risk it.
I mean, human extinction will probably not happen if we would be 10% of current humanity. It would probably. I don't know.
Well, like I said, the more humans we have, the faster we can end suffering for animals. The more humans, the better in every way.
The less humans we have, the less need to suffer in the meantime, while we can make probably qualitatively better political decisions.
But look, if everyone stops having kids today, right, then animals are absolutely stuffed. So no, we should absolutely keep going full speed ahead, have as many kids as possible, the biggest humanity possible. That is the only right thing to do. You are focusing on human suffering, which is a tiny, tiny speck. It's negligible. You're ignoring all of the other suffering.
But if you're focusing so much on volume of suffering, for example, you're saying
it's not just about volume.
As fast as possible.
They suffer worse than we do. Right? We're not being eaten alive. They are.
Yeah,
it's quantity
I agree.
and quality.
But
so that kind of destroys your entire argument.
This is This is very, very interesting, because therefore we would need to model some kind of a derivative function that tells us the whole sum of or the whole volume of suffering that could be reduced.
Why?
And this somehow presupposes that you can
explain why. Why do we need that? I don't think we do. That doesn't achieve anything. It doesn't provide any new information.
Because it's, I think because you need to make a trade-off. Otherwise, you would.
No. Look,
if you say,
look, I did a video on it today. Okay, 60 million humans die every year. 60 million, but the number of wild animals that die every year has 20 zeros after it. Okay, it's just a ridiculously big number, and yeah, they get eaten alive. They starve to death. They burn to death. Like, humans aren't going through that. Animals suffer way worse and in larger numbers.
And probably some other interplanetary, intergalactic life somewhere that suffers. That's just waiting for us to eradicate it.
And universe-wide extinction is our priority. And if it means that the animals on Earth suffer a little bit or whatever amount, if it's for the greater good, for universe-wide extinction, then yes, absolutely. So in that sense, if we run the world tomorrow, we wouldn't put 100% of resources into animal extinction. A lot of the resources, if not most of them, would go towards universe-wide extinction as number one priority.
Yeah, I mean, still, it's not really clear that let's say if. The issue currently is not like we don't have enough resources. There actually is enough resources for everybody, probably to feed 15 billion people or however so much. But
I agree.
the issue is more political. Like, will we be able to evolve our political system to live together and not kill ourselves in the progress? And I think if we let's say grow too fast and grow faster than we develop peaceful political systems that are in tune with that growth, we're actually risking eradicating ourselves faster, you know? So it's not really clear that growth of humanity guarantees expansion to the infinite, so we can eradicate the universe in a meaningful way.
Well, I'm not saying we have to colonize the stars. I'm saying that the more humans, the better. Absolutely. There is no real evidence that there's going to be significant overpopulation or anything like that. And realistically, within 50 years from now, AI and robots are going to be probably dealing with capitalism and making it so that we do have a higher capacity for population.
Yeah, hopefully. I want to be very optimistic about this as well. However, I think the transitional period, I mean, usually technology is developed faster than, the cultural adaptation to operate the technology in a wise way. And all this development may also cause phases that are, I don't know, let's say very harmful or very dangerous, or endanger the greater goal of the movement, let's say.
No, I mean, realistically, yeah, unless we go full speed, then we're letting down the victims, right? And the problem is that we're not going to really let it get to that point if we can. No, look, you're right. Look, every revolution, every movement trying to make change has faced, the ultimate resistance, right? Repression, oppression, but they ultimately still win, right? So yeah, we do have to keep. I mean, yes, it's not just as simple as that, because we are dealing with literally the most opposed ideology for humanity, right? This goes as far against human nature as possible. So you're right. There are unique circumstances here that make it different and more difficult than traditional movements. And so we are going to have to take that into account. And yeah, maybe, complete repression of extinctionism could be a real threat. But even if that does happen, I don't think you could fully, remove it, and we would go down as martyrs and all that. But we would also still come back anyway. It's about rationality. So unless they're going to genetically enforce irrationality, which they might do.
Yeah,
there's a lot of different ways it could go down. There's a lot of threats, a lot of risks. But right now, there's no risk of that happening. Right now, we are extremely under the radar, and even by UK law, for example, it's not against the law to advocate for extinctionism because it's not an imminent threat. So even in UK law, this is perfectly legal.
And I think
I think it's a question for the future of the movement, right? Let's say we get 1 million people first, or whatever. As the movement gets bigger and as society changes, right, the picture is going to look very different 10, 20 years from now, whatever. The world will be different. So it's basically, my point is that it doesn't help to focus on these questions right now. These questions are for the future to answer.
Okay. That's one more question. I mean, in case there will be a techno utopia and we're gonna be interplanetary, may it not be that we develop by any chance a technology that just relieves suffering to all beings? Let's say we can provide for a technology that relieves suffering to all beings.
No. Because even if it works most of the time, it could still go wrong. and that's not acceptable.
Why could it go wrong?
Because without omniscience, without certainty of safety, you have infinite danger. So even if you're in a perfect simulation and everything looks fine, it could still go terribly wrong. You know, if there are unknowns, if you don't have omniscience, then anything could happen, right? So it's infinite danger. So, you know, you can reduce suffering all you want, but unless you provide certainty of safety, it's not good enough. So no, we shouldn't let life continue like that.
Yeah, I wonder if there would be one or several scientific experiments that could actually prove that that these beings don't suffer anymore, that suffering has been eradicated. And in this hypothetical case, would you say, well, then we may live, or then life could keep on existing?
Well, no, the point is that it can still go wrong. And without omniscience, you cannot disagree.
Yeah, but I mean, the same argument I could make about the extinction plan. I mean, if you're at the point and you could actually push the button, you are. I mean, you cannot look in the future and say, well, it will have worked. And,
right,
and
but extinctionism is the only. It's more practical, right? Because even if you try to solve suffering without extinction, you ultimately would still need extinction, right? If you haven't sterilized the universe, then how have you solved suffering?
I could pull the same argument and say, well, what makes you so sure it will finally have worked? And
But ours has a chance at working, right? Again, if your plan doesn't even involve
but this is only because we think that we at least me as somebody who is who believes like the death frees us from suffering, or many people who believe that death frees us from suffering, that suffering is removed in this way only and only in this way.
So another problem with not doing extinction is that you by default ignore all of the sufferers, right? It's just saying we don't care about them. So there's never any moral urgency to actually help the sufferers, because you either don't care about suffering or you support extinction, basically.
I'm not sure. Can you put it in other words? I felt a bit slow on this one.
Yeah, my point is that if we don't do extinction, then it's accepting to not care about the sufferers, right? It's saying, yeah, just let them suffer. So it's saying that we should just ignore it, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, for example, let's say there is another planet out there with life, and we have to prevent the suffering on that other planet. There's going to be no moral urgency to go and help them, right? Because you've already said you don't care, basically, right? We don't care if they suffer. We should focus on our pleasure. So how are you going to ethically help the sufferers on another planet if you have no motivation to go and help them?
Yeah, I mean,
whereas extinction says, yeah, we have to prevent that suffering immediately, as fast as possible.
Yeah, but you're presenting it as the only remedy. Why?
Well, what is the alternative? Again, the only other remedy is omniscience, right? So, look, think of it this way: if I have a child right now, I would need omniscience to guarantee it won't have a bad life. Whereas if we don't have it, with the same level of certainty, I can guarantee it won't have a bad life. And nothing else is acceptable.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm just the only thing I could ever think of is really developing a technology that frees.
But it could go wrong.
Yeah, it could go wrong, but also pushing the big button that eradicates all life in universe. It could also go wrong. I mean, this is. I think this is an empty argument.
How could it go wrong?
You cannot look in the future and say, well.
We're saying that we should focus on maximum safety, right? So you're saying, no, forget safety. So yes, the safer option and the higher focus on safety has a much better chance of succeeding. Where you're saying, who cares about safety, and then saying it has the same chance of being safe. That doesn't make sense.
How can you pose that the
Because
bomb
again,
that-
look, again, if I don't have a child, it's perfectly safe. If I do have one, it's in infinite danger. So you really have to understand that euthanasia is infinitely more effective than creating omniscience to solve suffering.
yeah, I mean it's more practical and more known, but it does. I mean,
You're literally saying we should go with the most difficult possible option, the least likely to succeed, the one that doesn't even make sense, has no ethics, no morality to it.
I mean, your logic is convincing. However, this is the only thing that I could.
It really does boil
imagine
down.
being an alternative.
Listen. It does boil down to the example I just gave of if I don't have a child, it has certainty of safety. If I do have one, it's impossible to guarantee certainty of safety. So yeah,
I think
reduction of life existing is much safer than having it exist.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but this example doesn't really work because it's about bringing a new life, not bringing a new life into existence, comparing to eradicating existing life. This is a whole different thing.
No, it is the same. It is the same. No, you're wrong. It's not different.
Wait.
It is absolutely the same. The point is, it's much easier to provide safety when there's nothing that needs to be safe.
Yeah,
You can't possibly argue against that. You can't say that my child will be safer existing rather than not existing.
yes, this is why I'm more on the anti-natalist side.
But
however-
you're
one-
confusing it. You're confusing it.
However,
right?
once the child exists, the suffering needs to be removed, no?
Yeah.
And this is not done in the first place, but not having the child not reproduce in your movement, but by killing it and everything around it.
Well, sterilizing doesn't help those that are begging for death, right? It would be like slapping them in the face. Sterilization only helps the next generation, not the current one.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not good enough.
It's not good enough.
Yeah, euthanasia is better than sterilization. And yes, we should do it as fast as possible. We should provide safety as fast as possible, right? It's not about, can we have a bit more time? No, you should get safe as fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think the whole movement is actually great because it points out so many weak points of veganism and also of anti-natalism, and it's not like I'm trying to pose so much against it. What I also like, all the or most of the bigger world religions are posing some kind of an afterlife, or I don't know. And I'm more like on the side, well, actually it needs to end. I think relief can only come by having more or less the same state that I experienced before I was born.
Yeah,
and
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And more or less, I also believe. I mean, I still want to get old and experience some stuff, and but in the first place, I mean, I think we should somehow also do this. I mean, we can do it for selfish reasons in part, but also for the reason to relieve sufferings of other beings. And
I mean, look, if I was selfish, I would be, working, and I would be doing other stuff, right? I wouldn't be doing activism. So realistically, only selfless people are going to do activism.
Yeah, and I think what I really like about the movement, it asks the right questions and it confronts people with well, working
Right
through.
questions.
Huh?
With the right questions, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
The big questions.
yeah, exactly. And it easily points out the heresy of most other ideologies.
Yeah.
And most other ideologies are way less peaceful and way worse, I would say.
Exactly. Lopcraft, thank you for coming on. And as with everyone else, I suggest you continue the conversation with us on Discord. You can find the link on my TikTok profile. And you can also read the website, read the FAQ, the manifesto. And yeah, come and continue the conversation with us. And yeah, if you want to join as well. And I don't know if you are German. We get a lot of Germans on here. But we have German activists on TikTok. They do live streams. They do debates as well. So, you know, consider checking them out as well. You can find the links to their profiles and stuff on our Discord and stuff like that. But we're going to make it more accessible because right now it's kind of hard to direct people to our other activists. But there is a good way to do it. And there's also an account on TikTok that you can follow that we use to follow all of our activists on TikTok. So if you go to this account on TikTok, go to the profile and see who they're following, you can literally follow everyone that they're following and you will be able to see all of our activists on TikTok making videos. So that account is at End Suffering 4. So I'm just going to write that in the chat for everyone. It's very simple username, End Suffering 4. So if you go to that account, just type it in on TikTok, find the user, go see who they're following. You can follow all of our activists and check out their videos as well. Right, I'm going to get going now, guys. So thank you for joining us, everyone. You know, follow me, look at my recent videos and all that good stuff. Continue the conversation with us on Discord. The link is on my profile. And consider doing activism, right? We need more people to speak out against suffering and to help us abolish it as fast as possible. So get involved today with the movement, and we'll see